Difficult women.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
That's the day this podcast comes out. It's not the day that we're recording right now, though.
It could be, though, because I don't know what day it is.
I have no idea either.
No.
It's the upside down world.
Yeah.
Hello, I am Marie.
I am Katie. And
look at us.
This is the Difficult Women podcast. Welcome.
Love it. Welcome. Hello. Happy Tuesday again.
We did it. We made it to Tuesday, I hope.
I know. Who knows?
We'll see.
I felt like last week. So we've been having crazy storms here in Nashville, for the last several days. So it just has felt that the end is nigh.
Well, now we know why people down in those churches down there are like, apocalypse. And you're like, well,
yeah,
you can work on it, you know.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
So I didn't have electricity for a couple of days because the storm knocked it out. I talked about it on our Clubhouse hosting party on last Friday, folks. Thanks for joining.
A huge success. Thanks for coming. You guys make it to the next one. We'll let you know when that's going to be.
That's right. If you don't know what Clubhouse is, it's a new app. It's still in beta. That's one thing that we were like, come to Clubhouse. It's like, no, you have to get an invite type of thing. But
I have some extras. I think you might have some. You're going to acquire more. Also, I do know that I think if you don't have an Apple phone, an iPhone, then you may not be able to join Clubhouse yet. But we're also in beta. So it's okay. By the time you can join us, we will have figured it out. But
it was fun because we were able to just continue the conversation about last week's episode. So we'll be doing more Clubhouses. But I talked about this on the Clubhouse party that I had to hide in a closet because I thought a tornado was coming. It was more like a tsunami type thing. I don't know. I don't know the technical terms of this new weather that I'm experiencing down here. But then I didn't have electricity. But then yesterday I came home and I had electricity and I was like, oh my God, this is so great. And then boom, it went out as soon as I celebrated in my brain. And then 10 minutes later.
Because of more weather?
No, I don't know. It was nice and sunny when it went back out.
Maybe they're just struggling to get it back up.
But then 10 minutes, I just manifested it. I was like, Marie, calm down. It's just going to come back on. And then it did 10 minutes later, girl.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I have electricity. But we had crazy storms all last night again. Ooh. So it was flickering all night. So I don't know what's happening.
I don't know. I feel like we're getting the remnants of your storm where there has been rain and whatever, but it's not anything like what you're experiencing. Just a lot of rain normal in New York. But we also are getting some really nice days, I think, because of your storm.
Lovely.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
It was 70 degrees yesterday.
Oh, lovely.
And nice.
That's nice.
So thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, weather, for us. But I'm so sorry. I really don't like bad weather. I don't know if anyone does, but
I know when I experienced that thing, I was like, Katie, this would have been your worst nightmare because you've never done a tornado, have you?
My family from South Dakota, there's tornadoes in South Dakota. They're not wet, I don't feel, or maybe they are, I don't know. But so we would in the summers. I feel like also the amount of tornadoes that happen in the Midwest, it's all moved down south or something now. I feel like they don't have them. They're worse down south or something now than they. I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels like that. But when I was a kid in the summers, yeah, there'd be tornado warnings all the time. And I would hide in my grandmother's basement for half the summer. And they'd be like, it's fine. You'll be fine. And I was like, oh God, we're all going to die. And everyone would be upstairs. Totally normal. There was one that came with right near my uncle's farm. And my aunt had never seen a tornado. So it was happening. And my uncle was like, get in the house. And she just kind of got mesmerized by it. And it was coming. So they watched this whole thing happen where it was coming right for their house. They could see it right at their house. And tornadoes jump for whatever reasons. And it jumped right over their house and went on to the rest of the. It's not even a neighborhood because it was a farm, but it was just missed the house. So, I mean, they happen. But I always yeah.
The twist is.
What scares me more, not to make you more nervous, but
oh, good.
wasn't there one in downtown Nashville at once?
Yeah, I lived here. Yeah,
really scares me.
Yeah, it was going through the skyscrapers, and I remember my dad's car was really damaged by hail. The hail stuff is great. That's what happened first here. It was just that's where you think the apocalypse is happening because it was just golf ball size hail falling from the sky. Anyway, I hope everybody was
be
safe.
safe. I know that, I mean, lots
This
of
stuff
other
is crazy.
Alabama got hit real hard, and I hope that, you know, our Alabama friends are okay.
Yeah. Anyway, this is a weather podcast now.
Yeah. Talk about
thanks for
the
tuning
weather.
in. It's 72 degrees and sunny. No.
We're just practicing for when we leave our houses because, you know, no one will know what to talk about. So they'll just be like, the weather,
Wait,
huh?
I'm going to my first concert tonight.
Oh my God.
I know I've only had one shot, but this is a completely social distance, very, very small indoor show where you have to wear your mask. But it's at Third.
Oh, yes, tell me. Third
at Lindsley, where we performed.
Oh, I was going to
Nashville.
say, that's cool.
Yeah, this really awesome music venue that I'm just so excited to see music. I'm just so excited.
I was thinking that just like maybe even last night I was watching like some concerts online. I was like, I just want to see like any band play. It could be like a really bad band. It could be someone doesn't know how to play anything, and I'd be like, I'll watch this.
Yeah,
for, you know.
I just want somebody to shred a guitar in front of my eyes. You
just
know,
do something.
That's it.
I will say, just be aware not to be the
Grandma?
COVID police, but like my mom texted me in the middle of the night and was like, just so you know, I heard a doctor say that it might take 4 weeks to be fully vaccinated after your last shot and not 2. So just be careful.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't even gotten my second shot. I get that.
Just pretend like you have nothing in your body.
Right. But I'm trusting. Also, I just hope that it's true that it's a socially distanced. Like they're very.
Well, if it feels unsafe, you just leave.
Yeah, I'm bouncing.
Yeah, that's my mom advice.
But they were like, the doors open at 6. I'll be like, great, I'll be there at 6:01, and the show doesn't start till like 9. But I'm just gonna be there, like ready.
Yeah, just be in a space. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I
ate lunch outside the other day with a friend, and I was like, oh,
like at a patio.
Yeah, just like outside, like on a, you know, well, like on the, to be honest, it was like on the street, you know how they do that outdoor dining now. And we had sort of like the last leftover table, and it was really sloped down. And I was like, don't order the soup, because I just couldn't imagine anything.
Yeah, the world is doing it. We're doing it, I think.
Slowly, but because, you know, everybody still be careful. The numbers are going up.
Go out and lick things. Yeah.
Don't go out and lick everybody.
Do it.
Oh, God.
I'm hopeful. It's great. I'm pumped.
Yeah, no, I'm hopeful too. And I mean, I think that people are, and the weather is getting better. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm so excited. Except for in Nashville, where it's getting
now
worse.
It just means that there's going to be more storms and stuff. It's great. It's fine. It's fine.
I
do need a basement. That is the only problem I realized.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I'm going to like figure out who has the best storm cellar on my block and befriend them.
That's the way to do it. That's, yeah. Once this thing is over, I'm going to befriend my neighbor who has a backyard.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Be like, hey.
My fire pit blew away. That was the one. That was a little bit of a bummer.
No.
But I found it. I did find it.
I was going to say.
I found it. But I was like, oh, shit.
A fire pit. Yeah.
This was like the one thing I wanted.
Well, I guess you just have to bring your fire pit in when the weather gets bad.
Good point. Didn't even think about that.
Yeah, you got to bring that stuff in.
Yeah. Huh.
You know, learning
the new me.
Yeah.
The new me, bringing things in.
Bring stuff in if it's going to fly away.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation about weather. Sorry. Everyone's like, what the fuck are they talking about? I don't know. Maria was just reliving her trauma. And speaking of reliving your trauma, that sort of has something to do with our topic today. But before we get to it, let's buy some dildos. Free stuff is awesome, but free stuff to spice up your bedroom is even better.
Select almost any one item for 50% off, and then Adam and Eve loads on the free stuff.
Enter offer code HORIO at checkout and get 10 tantalizing free gifts.
A sexy item for him, a special gift for her, and a third item you'll both enjoy.
And 6 free spicy movies.
Ooh. Plus, free shipping.
That's HORIO, WHOREO, HORIO at adamandeve.com.
And we are back, and we won't talk anymore weather, I promise. Maybe. Maybe.
Maybe. We'll see.
I don't know. We'll get wet.
We do
I don't
what we
know.
want. We're artists. Right. We do what we want.
That's right. And a big thing of doing what we want is that, like, you know, we were doing this women's history, you know, series. You know, a deep dive into ladies through history. And because last month, March, was Women's History Month. But guess what? You know, Women's History Month should be every fucking month.
Yeah.
So we're just going to keep going.
Yeah. Well, right. Well, we skipped one. So now we're filling that void because we
That's right.
Enough OCD to like, oh, we got one. I gotta get one more.
We gotta get one more. We said we do 4, and we have to do yeah. So
exactly.
So today we're actually going to be doing a deep dive into art herstory. Oh God,
there you go.
Look at that. Yeah, I hate when people say herstory, but I did. I just did it.
I'm also not a big fan of, and maybe I'm gonna get canceled for this. I don't like the women with the Y, women. It's like, it's fine. It's just spelled that way. It doesn't mean, it just means, it doesn't matter. I just don't care. If there's a word man and woman, I just don't care.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You put a Y in there. Anyway. Yes. So actually, I am super amped about this episode. I don't know if it's partly because I just feel like these are the women that I think I relate to more than many women in history.
Oh, really?
And I didn't really realize it until I was looking into these things. I think it's because even in if you go way back in history and you find a woman artist, they're always defying the traditional role.
Right.
You know what I mean? Writers like the George Sands of the world and all that kind of thing. They're women that are like, nah, fuck this. I want to do what I want to do. And they kind of have to. Yeah, they march to the beat of their own drum. And I feel like if I was alive in 1908, right, during the Matisse time and all that, I don't know that I'm a great painter, but I would have been out there in France. Where's that area? You know?
Yeah,
I would have
Montmartre.
been
Montmartre.
Montmartre. Yeah, I would have been up there drinking absinthe with them. Same. I would just be the same person. It would just be 1908. You know?
I'd definitely be a can girl. I'd be dancing all up in the Moulin Rouge. I'd be, doing all that. I mean?
I just feel like that, it just hit me today where I was like, oh yeah, my spirit would be the same.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I was really feeling it with these ladies today.
Well, they're so defiant in society. I mean, so I just wanted to tell this quick story. Last week we went there's this awesome Picasso exhibit downtown here in Nashville at the Frisch Museum. And I went with my parents, and it's very nicely socially distanced and all that sort of stuff. But we went and we go through Picasso, and Picasso has some, if he was alive today, he'd probably be canceled because he's had some questionable.
He's almost lucky he's dead because
I know.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating. I mean, my mom was an art teacher for 30 years. She's a wonderful artist, and she does all types of mediums. Like yesterday I was there because of the electricity thing. I stayed at my parents'. Very lucky, very privileged. And she's tie-dyeing pillowcases. That's my mother. She's always just doing some sort of arts and crafts and stuff. And it was funny because we were at the Picasso Museum. We're going through Picasso. My mom's kind of joking about how if he was alive today, he'd be canceled. Then we went upstairs to the American West exhibit. All men painters too. We just went through the whole museum. It's all male painters, all of them. And then we got to the one female painter in the American West exhibit. And my mother very loudly, finally, a woman.
I love your mom.
And they're members of the museum. My mom volunteers there a lot. So I don't know if she knew people that heard her or gives a fuck. But next time you go to a museum, just peruse the art through history and how very few. I think the statistic is it's 1 in 10. No, that sounds way too high. It's just very few.
I mean, 10% is not that much.
But I think it's even less than that.
I see.
That's why.
Well, I know definitely. And that's the thing too about I have feelings about art in terms of art curation. I don't have so many feelings about artists necessarily, although it depends on the artist. But there's this movie that's out right now about it's a little boring. I don't necessarily recommend it, but it's about fake art, fake paintings, Rothko paintings that people have been forging, and they were making it into these really big time art museums, and also people were buying them, and so people buy this shit for millions of dollars, and just the whole, it's what is that part of the art world? That's not what we're talking about today, but that's just an interesting thing to me. It's this Rothko goes for $10 million, and I'm and then people are, and it's about how it's not even about the art. In the end of the day, it becomes about oh, this is something that's hard to get your hands on. So as a rich, powerful person, I want to have something other people can't have. But is that the point of art? No. So leave it to rich people to find a way to make money off of something that's not even supposed to be like that. But anyway,
Well, I do
And then
want
the
to say,
artist, and the artist doesn't get the money, by the way. The artist is dead.
right.
So it's
right.
not like you're
Very
paying
good
the
show.
artist. And when the artist sold the painting originally, they'd be selling them for, and even when they were famous, at best they're selling them for like, $10,000 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you make up,
Right.
So
well,
anyway.
in the art auction world, I just thought it was interesting. Like, I think the last decade, they made $196.6 billion from auctioning off art, and $4 billion of that were women artists, and so that's 2% of all the art that has been auctioned off in the last 10 years, and that $4 billion is actually only 5 female artists.
That's
That is insane.
Right.
What is that
Who's
about?
getting that money, by the way? That's just the other
Right.
question I keep asking.
I mean,
It's like,
it's
who's
so
even
much
getting
money.
that money?
It's so much money. But but the art world is so skewed. And the Me Too movement really did like highlight a lot of that. Because I mean, a lot of women do work in galleries and museums and stuff, but like I think that the gatekeepers, and as we're learning, is like a lot of gatekeepers are like white old men. So same,
Right. And I think that
world.
that's the thing that's so interesting about like art curation is that it's only within the eye of the beholder. Art is in the eye of the beholder. So it's like, what is the value of art? Well, it's only in the as valuable as this guy says it is.
Right.
What a weird random standard.
Right.
But like, okay, so to get into some people that were like so inspiring to us, we were going to start with Frida Kahlo. How does that sound?
Yeah.
So Frida Kahlo is probably one of the most famous female artists. So people may already know a lot about her. I don't know. I didn't know. I knew a little bit about her. There's a movie, Salma Hayek. Didn't see it, but did you see that movie?
No. There's a lot of documentaries also.
Good.
Didn't see it.
Didn't watch them. Don't know.
Don't know. We're not experts, I'm going to say.
Just Googlers. We just like to Google.
Just Google. But also, I mean, she's just definitely been in the background of all of, art history that, because there's not that many ladies. So you're like, who's great?
Yeah.
Frida.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why we even started talking about this today, or we decided to talk about it, was because Marie's mom posted something on Facebook about how in 1930s, there was an article about Frida Kahlo that was an interview or some little article blurb about her in the newspaper, and they referred to her not as artist Frida Kahlo. They were like, this little lady is Diego Rivera's wife. And it's just sort of like that, some things never change really. But it was sort of like, fuck that, because we know, I mean, Frida Kahlo has arguably fully surpassed Diego Rivera in popularity now, at least.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
By a long shot. At the time, I don't know. But just to talk a little bit about like her background, she had polio as a child. So struggled with that, was like bullied, not, had a wonderful family, it sounds like, but just had a hard time making friends. But because of some of her ailments? God, what is happening to me right now? Having a stroke. Live on the pod. Speaking of stroke, she wanted to become a doctor because of all the treatment that she got. So she went to this like special school to train young people to be super smart and doctors and all that. And it was in Mexico. There was something like 53 women or girls in the program, and then there was like 1,600 boys.
Yeah, a lot of
so
men.
She already was in a situation where you're already like building yourself up to be a strong, independent woman, which I think is cool. While she was at school, she was super involved. There had been a revolution in Mexico in 1910, and she was just very moved by that and the politics of Mexico and, national pride of Mexico and all that. So she had a little group of young people that were sort of fighting for communism and things like that. But she like kind of led one of the groups. She was just a strong kind of leader type woman and young woman. And at some point was on a tram or a bus or something, and the bus got in an accident, maybe with the tram.
She was on a bus and a trolley hit him.
Oh God, that's so awful. So many broken bones. I mean, she broke like all the bones, like her leg.
She had like a pole like go through her abdomen or something. Like
it was bad. They thought she was going to die for sure. They definitely thought she was going to die. She
and
did
never
it.
walk again. Like
Right.
dead. Like never. Yeah, she was in a coma, unconscious or something for
like weeks. Yeah. But during that time when she did wake up, because she was a strong soul, she was like, Dad, could you bring me some art supplies? So this was sort of like the beginning of her painting life. And I think she was probably liked to draw and stuff when she was younger. But he was like, of course. And he made her this easel that she could like, now you can buy them on like Amazon, but it was like one of those bed, like he made it so that she could lay in bed and try to recover. And
there was like
paint.
a mirror involved,
and he put a mirror like
of the
on
mirror,
the,
and then you paint. Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Paint lying down.
I mean, that makes it even harder.
I know. I can't even standing up. Jesus.
Mm-hmm. But the point of all these stories, and then shortly after that, she met Diego Rivera, and then they got married. Mm-hmm. But the point of all those stories, like, why do you mention like that she got in an accident and stuff? It's because like she had to overcome so much physical pain, really, and so many like trials and tribulations, and with the polio and stuff. And she overcomes all these problems and still becomes this like extremely well-known painter. Her style, they were saying it was sort of like a
surrealist.
Yeah, surrealist. But even her surrealism, it's like different than traditional surrealism. She was kind of, again, dancing by the beat of her own drum and not just following along with like what the other surrealists were doing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of her paintings, as we know, were like self-portrait type paintings, where she really expressed how she was that was like how she expressed how she was feeling about certain things. And she had a lot of feelings because, I mean, on the one hand, the pain is something that she wanted to express in her art. And then also just like Diego Rivera, talk about cancel culture. I mean,
I know. Well, so she said, she does paint a lot of herself, self-portraits and stuff. And I read that she said that because she was the only subject around was herself. Mm-hmm. And so she was alone a lot, laying in the hospitals alone, fearing for her life, all that sort of stuff. And so she would just paint herself. And I think one of the most like magical things about her art is how she really was able to capture her pain as a female. And because of her disabilities and the accidents and all that sort of stuff, she wasn't able to have any children, and she suffered from multiple miscarriages. And just like how your body fails you, I just can't imagine what that must feel like. But then also to, outwardly be able to represent your inner emotions. I mean, there's that one painting where she's laying in bed and it's like umbilical cords, like attached to like a snail and a broken heart, and it's just like it's everything in her trying to be expressed outwardly. And just how many women can relate to a painting like that? I mean, that's a painting about miscarriages, and
that paint that was made in like 1940 or 30 or something,
right? So
I think that was
so like what?
Well, and I think that's that painting in particular speaks to me, and not that I've had to have a miscarriage, but just that I know that this is a subject that people do not talk about. Mm-hmm. And that women have been suffering with the pain of miscarriage for this long. And she was like, fuck that. I want to express my feelings about this thing. Mm-hmm. And so she did, and I think maybe because it is in the form of art and not just like someone just talking about it. Maybe it's a little bit more accepted that way, but those images, they can be so helpful to other people, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm. And that painting we're talking about is Henry Ford Hospital. That's what it's called. And it was painted in 1932. So just look it up. I think it's really a beautiful, very emotional. I think that's why I just love art so much. Just how it can hit you any given day. It can be different the next day. It's just from your experiences, your own personal experiences. You get to, it hits you in different.
And I love how it's like it's cathartic for the artist, but then it can be cathartic for the viewer too, which is like what a gift. I mean, I don't know.
I also love just I haven't traveled a crazy amount out of the U.S., but finally going to Europe and going to Paris and like going to museums and seeing art that I've learned about forever, or maybe had seen in Washington and then now it was in Paris or something. I love going and visiting old friends. That's how I feel a lot about certain paintings that I've seen and have had the privilege to see throughout my life. And I just then to experience where you are in your life at that point and viewing the same art that you might have viewed several years ago or something. Like a painting I saw in high school. I'll never forget going to the National Gallery in DC and seeing the sunflower Monet painting, and then again seeing it in Europe. It's just like how much I've grown as a human being in those 20 years. Just really cool. I'm not an artist. I cannot paint, but I have such a deep respect for it, and especially these women that were breaking the mold and boundaries of it. So
yeah. Well,
anyway.
That kind of brings us to another artist who's extremely famous, and a woman who's a woman and famous, and she's an American artist, Georgia O'Keeffe. Oh, one last thing I just wanted to say about Frida Kahlo is that she was like born in like 1908 or something, but she changed her birth date to 1910, and people are like, why? Because she wanted to seem like 2 years younger or whatever. And I was like, no, because she wanted to be her life to be affiliated with the Mexican Revolution, because that was just a really big part of like what she wanted to express. She expressed a lot of like sort of native Mexican cultures within her art too. That was part of it. One of the reasons she was with Diego Rivera to begin with was because they both had strong feelings about Mexican nationalism and also communism, and trying to spread those things. But I think that, like, to me, that's important just too, that like whether or not you agree with those political views, she strongly felt something political and wanted to express that. And I just liked that.
Yeah, she said that she was a child of the revolution.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, and it's funny that she was like, man, I wish I was born the year it started. So let me just change
jobs.
Yeah. But great. Like, yes, love it.
Yeah. People are like, did she want to be younger? It's like, no, bitch. She wanted to be part of this revolution. Okay.
Yeah, she wanted to be like tied to it. Amazing. So the next lady we'd like to talk about is Georgia O'Keeffe. Born, I don't remember where she was born.
Wisconsin.
She's born in Wisconsin.
Late 1800s, I believe. I don't know. I didn't write down the
exact
exact
what was
date.
Crazy to me about, sometimes it's like dates, right? Where you're like, these names, you've seen the paintings. I think if you had asked me, I would have said she was born like 1920. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, in like 1886 or something. I should double check that.
Check your sources. 1887, maybe? I don't know. Yeah. Born November 15th, 1887. The second of 7 children. She grew up on a farm near Sun Prairie, Wisconsin.
And one thing that I relate to with Georgia O'Keeffe is that she grew up kind of like in the middle of nowhere. Not that I did, but she
DC is,
yeah, just a little middle of nowhere. But she really liked her solitude. That was a really important part of her life. And I think it probably developed when she was alone on a farm at some point. For me, it was just being home alone as a child, as an only child. It's great. I love it, though. I love being alone. Anyway, she had sort of a more like, from what I could decipher, a more traditional like artist trajectory. But I kept just thinking, like, within the context of the time, I can't imagine that this was a normal path for a woman to take. Maybe I'm wrong, but so imagine you're born in 1887 in Wisconsin on a farm. Her family then moved to Williamsburg, Virginia, which is a little bit of a bigger town. So at least she was, I guess, a little bit more into the hustle and bustle of life. And then she decided to go to art school in New York. That's kind of a big move. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, from a farm in Wisconsin and then to, dream big, girl.
Yeah. But the issue that she had at art school was that it was a very traditional art school. They taught very traditional style of art, which is like, hey, copy these old famous people. And that's
old
what
men.
teach you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And she was like, this is fine, but I feel kind of limited by this. And now we're getting, this is why I was thinking about like 1908 and like whatever the Matisse time is. That was when she was starting to really ramp up on her work, her art, and like learning about art and stuff. And she found herself drawn to like Japanese style paintings and things that were not so realistic, you know what I mean? Like not such just like, oh, copy this fruit in a basket, you know? She studied with this another artist who then kind of broke her gave her more opportunities to broke her. No.
He broke her. I mean, our acting
opportunities.
teachers tried to break us in freaking college,
it happens
which is so
in
stupid,
art.
but yes.
Yeah, that happens in the art world. No, but that was not what happened to Georgia O'Keeffe. That's fake news. He was just teaching more like modern styles and, you know, sort of saying you don't have to paint a flower exactly the way a flower is painted. And so she learned a lot from that. She has these like amazing charcoal paint, like drawings, charcoalings, I don't even know what you call them, that she did. And she was like going back and forth. She was studying with this guy. Then she was like teaching in Texas, which again, also like a woman teaching in art in Texas in like 1908. I don't know. In a university, like that feels like big moves, you know, like.
I mean, yeah, women aren't
like a big
they
deal.
don't have many rights or anything like that.
No.
And they're really just supposed to make babies at this point.
Yeah, so I was like already just impressed with the fact that she like went and taught at a university. But that's before she was even like Georgia O'Keeffe, right? Like where she wasn't well known yet. But her friend I think she decided to go back to school. She went to Columbia actually for art. Back into New York City, and had like a friend that was like, hey, let me look at your charcoals that you did. And she was like, okay, they're okay or whatever. And he was like, they're amazing. I'm sending him to this art gallery. She sent him to the art gallery, and the guy was like enthralled by them, put up a whole show for her. Then she became famous because they were so amazing, and they're legit so cool looking. I'm like, really, look it up. Google it. Do what I do. And then she married the guy who ran the art show.
What a happy, Alfred.
Alfred.
I can't say his last name. Yeah, Alfred.
Okay. One thing I liked though about what they talked about her relationship with him was that they said something like her taste for solitude never like dissipated even after her marriage. So she liked to kind of like be on her own, but then she found someone that worked. You know, it must have worked.
Yeah, power couple.
Yeah.
# relationship goals. I love it. But then,
yes.
Continue on. I mean, I don't know much about her, so.
Well, I didn't know anything about her. So part of the thing is, I guess I would say both Frida Kahlo and Georgia O'Keeffe were people that had some fame during their lifetime, which was kind of unusual for artists. You know, like Van Gogh's a great example of that, where he was like in a mental institution and was like painting for therapy. And then it wasn't until after his death that people were like, these are pretty good. We should sell them to other people, which is like crazy. But that's how he like became famous. But so Georgia O'Keeffe, she got praised in like 1918 or whatever. I mean, the dates on these blow my mind. But she started to become like a famous American painter who was the mother of American modernism. And again, was like doing some of these, you know, Picasso was a modernist, right? The same time period. And that like cubism and that kind of thing, that was sort of what was popular at the time. And she was like, I'm going to do my own thing. So like the amount of influence that has on the future artist, it can't be overstated really. So these female artists are very important. They're not just like, and then there was this lady. It was like these people like, and Frida Kahlo too, like the influence that they've had on future artists is enormous. So I'm just saying that. But she was like kind of famous, but notoriously private. So it feels like there's not a lot of like dirt on her or like, you know, crazy stories about her. But she got really she went at some point in her life, she ended up in New Mexico and ended up living in New Mexico and staying there, and was just really inspired by nature. And what like nature, what you could like express emotionally about nature through art, and you know what nature expresses to you. And so here's the big reveal with her. I couldn't find a lot about this, but one like biography on her, they were like, those paintings of the flowers, they, you know how we think like, oh, they're like vaginas, they represent vaginas. That's not her intention at all. And it was that because at the time, which was like the early 18s or whatever, these fucking men were so obsessed with Freud, and Freud was so obsessed with dicks and vaginas, that they decided that they were about vaginas. And she was like, they're not vaginas, they're just like nature flowers.
Could you imagine working so hard at a painting and then having just men just being like, that's a vagina?
Mansplaining.
It's like
yeah,
what
original mansplaining.
Right.
It's It's so annoying. That is like the most annoying thing. And I had no idea.
Right. Yeah, my mom actually taught me that a long time ago. Because I was like, we're going to go see vagina paintings. And she was like, no, that was not her interpretation. It was the men of the time that said that it was vaginas, but it's not. That's not what she was painting.
Mind blown. For real, though. And how fucking frustrating is it that she lived to be like 90 something.
Right.
And like she had lots of time to tell people they're not vaginas. And that like nobody was listening. Everyone's like, no, you're vagina painting. She's like, they're not vaginas.
Could you imagine?
I mean, you guys.
Well, at least they look at the flowers and they're like, that's a vagina. And it's not like looking at one of her skull paintings. And
right.
It's like, that's a vagina.
Right. Just cold and hard and painful. Oh, but
yeah, I do think that it like the interpretation of her paintings like put her even more inward with her art and stuff.
For sure.
Because of that male gaze.
For sure. And I think, you know, this idea that like she, you know, maybe at least separated her from like the art world, because she did continue to paint for her whole life, which I think is also cool and badass of her. The other thing though about her too is that like, so those flower paintings, the whole point for her, it wasn't just like, oh, they're just flowers. It was for her, it was a way to express emotions through nature. She was very into like, maybe they would even, I don't know enough about art history, but like, isn't naturalist also like a style of art? So, I mean, maybe she would also be considered like, she's, you know, American modernism, but also naturalism. I don't know. Wasn't there also like a movement of like nationalism around this time in painting where you'd be like, look at the beauty of America?
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, maybe she's also part of that movement. I don't really know.
I think that's why, I mean, when she was in New Mexico painting like the canyons and the mountains and the clay earth and stuff, she was celebrated in that, like, maybe it was around like nationalism time.
Yeah, it feels like
capturing
right.
America.
Right.
Again, why wasn't she included in the American West exhibit at the Frist Museum? It would have just been one other woman that you could have included.
Good God.
And she painted a lot of American West, so like I don't understand. Anyway,
yeah, there's a lot. She's quite prolific, it seems. So it's not like it'd be hard to find.
Yeah. Anybody know of a?
Yeah. So annoying.
Female. Yeah.
So annoying. And speaking of which, like these people, these women, they're not just like, oh, let's just get some token women artists. The art that they made is like extremely, what is the word? Like really influential in future art. And there was, this is sort of like a side thought, but there is this like skull painting thing where she finds, and I guess the idea was that like she would be very particular about like how, you know, she'd be observing nature around her and she'd be very detail oriented and she'd find things that were sort of overlooked and then make those the sort of focus of her paintings. So she had a series where they had these like cow skulls like we were talking about, and she sort of centers them in the painting and they're really beautifully done. And I was thinking about, I don't know if this is true, but I was thinking about how like could it not be possible that like Urban Outfitters was influenced by those paintings? You know what I mean? Because it's become such like a pop culture thing to have like a skull on your wall and it's like a decorative thing now. But was that the case in 1920 or whenever that thing was made? So I mean, like even just those kinds of influences, I'm just gonna go on a limb and say like that somebody later on in time was like, oh, this is a cool painting and like let's just find a skull and put it in your living room. You know what I mean? And like
right,
you know, so that stuff, these, you know, these people influence us in our lives in a way that I don't think we fully appreciate.
Right. Thank you, Urban Outfitters.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely, let's give the credit to Urban Outfitters for sure.
Let's give it all up to Urban Outfitters here. Georgia who? God.
Oh my God. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, she's a badass lady. Also she started to lose her eyesight in her 70s, which is like the worst thing that could happen to an artist. But it didn't stop her from painting.
Wow.
She got like a team of people to help her. She's like, the art is in my mind. I know what I want to make. And she got some younger folks to pull out their paintbrushes. And she's like, the red's over here. Put the green there. That's how I imagine it went. The truth is that how would she be able to see what it was she made? I don't know. But
wow, I know. I'd trick her. I'd be like, ha ha ha, she said red, but I'm doing blue.
You'd be drawing like Santas or something. And she's like, yes, Santa Fe. And you're like, oh, I thought you said Santa Claus. And that would be like, oh God, I don't know.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. All right, well, we have one last woman artist to discuss today. Her name is...
Marina Abramovic.
Yes, Marina Abramovic.
If you don't know...
Serbian. She's Serbian. Woo. Okay, let's get into her.
Yes. So if you don't know that name, if that doesn't sound familiar to you, she is like the premier performance artist. And recently has been having shows and things, and she's had shows the whole time. She's been doing this for a long time. But she had that show that was in the MoMA where she sat in a chair for like days. I don't even know how many, hours and hours and hours. The installation or whatever was days long. People came, they'd line up, and then they could sit across from her silently and like stare into her eyes. And that was the piece. And didn't you see it?
Well, yes, I walked by it and I didn't sit in the chair. That seemed very like there was a huge line to sit in the chair and actually look into her eyes. But that just seemed so like I was legitly scared to do that.
I really wanted to go to this. Yeah, I really wanted to go to this installation, but I was scared to go. Mm-hmm. It just was like, it felt like a lot.
Well, it was really interesting. I mean, like James Franco made it, all these celebrities were going and doing it and having these experiences. But what she said about that performance art is that like when she learned these strangers would sit down across from her and people would laugh, they would cry. There was one woman that took off her clothes and was escorted out by security. I mean, like and just simply by her sitting there. She also had a chamber pot that like she could just pee and not have to get up.
That's amazing.
She could go to the bathroom.
We need those for our cars when we're on tour. Just like
I know.
Right in the seat.
But she said that the people were, they would always turn inwardly.
Right.
And deal with their inner emotions.
So this is like what I'm kind of. So I have had many thoughts about like performance art and all that stuff, and like have opinions about like what is this? Why are we doing this? What are we looking at?
I mean, raise your hand if you've seen bad performance art.
Oh my God! I mean, yeah, that's
like oh God, so bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
Have you seen bad performance art? It sounds like you're speaking from experience, right?
I will never forget this. In college, I was in my lighting design class. I love that class. And for our final project, we had to do a concert or, a performance with lighting. And this one girl, I'll never forget, she was like a performance artist at Appalachian State. And so she came out, stripped herself down naked. She was in these like bright yellow gels, so like it wasn't a very like flattering color on her skin, but then stripped down naked and then smeared mustard and mayonnaise and ketchup all over her and then said, "I am a hot dog."
That's amazing. And this was, but was she kidding or was this real?
No, she was serious, very serious.
Oh, what a choice. What a choice.
What a choice. I know. I will. So when I think of performance art, I always think, I am a hot dog.
Well, and I think a lot of people do. You know what I mean? I think that when you think of like performance art, it's like, what is this about? Is this some self-serving, like whatever? And I've had those thoughts. I'm like, I don't really know. But I got to tell you, the more I learn about Marina Abramovic, the more I love her and respect what she does and like feel very connected to her in this crazy way.
Really?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So not this part of the story, because I was going to say, you see, she was born in
just a couple years away
just
from
in Belgrave after the war, just like me. Just like me. I relate. No, this part of the story I don't relate to, but she was born in what's now, or what at the time was Yugoslavia, in like 1945 or something. Her parents were not good parents. And it really informed who she was and what she did with her life. And her parents fought a lot with each other. And then also her mother was like very abusive and like very controlling. She said her mother never kissed her or told her she loved her. And that like lack of love and support and parental support really like formulated who she was. And I think that like the controlling aspect of her mother also made her rebel a lot. So she didn't want to be told what to do and how to do things. And so she was like out in the world, like trying out different stuff, right? And trying to express herself in different ways because she wasn't like allowed to express herself at home in a normal way, you know, her feelings and all that. And a lot of her early work was, people accused her of being a masochist. Because she would do a lot of like, there was this one piece where her hand is out on the ground and then she's just like stabbing around her fingers. But like she misses a bunch. So like there, you know, there's blood everywhere and like her hand is like, you know. So people are like looking at this going like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And it was just her way to express pain, you know?
Well, she had another exhibit where she was laying down and then had like 67 different items around.
This one is
including a pistol that's fully loaded. And she said that she was ready to die. And so like people could come up and use these things on her body. Her body is the art and the product, the media.
Right.
Medium,
so that the
medium.
Right. And just to clarify, like the event was that she just stood there in like a regular outfit, just unmoving, non-emotional. And she invited the observers, the you know, patrons or whatever, to take any object from the table and do with it as they would to her body. And there's this really great interview where she talks about like her experience of this happening, right? And she said it's interesting because at the beginning of I think it was like 6 hours that she stood there. The beginning of the 6 hours, the first people kind of felt timid and unsure of what to do and like whatever. And they were very kind and gentle at first. So she remembers one of the first things is someone came and then handed her a rose that was on the table. And it was like, oh, how lovely, like whatever. She's like, but then as people got more bold, it started becoming like people would take like the knife and start cutting into her skin. And so she's like bleeding. Then somebody, you know, moved to the next level where they cut open her shirt. So now she's like topless. And then the next person takes a knife and they start cutting into like her breasts and her chest. And they're like mutilating her. And this is at a time where she was already kind of starting to be known and people didn't like what she did. They were like, what is this shit you're doing? And so she was finding that, so she's just standing there kind of emotionless. The violence against her body is escalating. And then, you know, they were like, okay, the 6 hours is up. So then she breaks out of her like stoicism. And she said the first thing that happened was it jarred the audience so much to see her like humanized all of a sudden that they ran away. They could not stand to like look at what they had done to her, because then when she kind of came back to life, she had tears in her eyes. She was covered in blood. She was like, her clothes have been taken off. She's having a real feelings about this experience too, you know? And she said she went back to the hotel and was like, you know, it's amazing like what people will do to you when they hate you, you know, if they want to, and especially if they dehumanize you. And it was just like a lesson in what humans are willing to do to each other. And she said, you know, it's easy to make art for people that like you, but it's much more fulfilling to make art for people that don't.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, that's nuts.
So, and that's where like performance art. So it's not that like it is just her own body, but it's all the internal stuff that's coming out.
It's her body. Like, wow, exactly. Yeah. Like that the audience, what they put onto you. She's like a blank canvas.
Right. She's projecting. Right. It's all this.
And that art, that piece becomes what you make of it, what the audience makes of it. Right. The whole 6 hours could have been people telling her how wonderful she was and drawing hearts on her and handing her flowers, but that's not what it was.
God, what does that say about humans?
Exactly. So then like touching back onto that that one that they did at the MoMA, where it's like people just sitting and observing, or like connecting with her like through her eyes. One thing that's so cool about her when you start to like listen to her talk, like she'll be with an interviewer. There was this one interview I saw where she's like holding the guy's hand and she's like, people in America don't hold each other's hand enough. She's like, I like to just hold people's hand. And he was like, okay. So he's just sort of like letting her hold his hand. And she says something like, you know, the like Buddhist monks, they like to hold people's hands so they can feel their energy and get like a reading on them. And he's like, is that what you're doing to me? And she's like, yeah, I guess I am. And she just, and then she'll like, it'll be like walking around outside talking, and then she'll be like, lay down right here. Like feel the earth, like feel the energy of the earth. But it's really like, it's not like fakey, like, oh, let me try to be special. It's like really coming from a real place. You can tell she's just like, it's like her life is a piece of art. Like her life's work is to connect as fully as she can to like the earth and humanity and the energy around us. And like that's sort of what seems to be motivating her in these movements, you know? I think it started as like expressing and trying to like a desperation to connect with people because she didn't have a connection as a child, that is now morphed into like this like wisdom that is really cool.
Well, another incredible performance artist, not a woman, David Copperfield.
Oh God, I love David Copperfield.
I do too. But it reminds me very much that like it's a deep state of meditation, I would assume.
Right. Because it does go through a lot of pain. Like a lot of her work is about pain. Physical pain, emotional pain.
Well, you do know she's been in the news a lot because like the alt-right people think she's in a cult and a Satanist.
Of course they do. But you know why they think that?
Because she painted something with blood.
Well, but they think that because but it's like they also just are so terrified. That same group, we talk about this in the pod all the time. They're so terrified of like truth and profound truth, right? Like the truth of who we are. Because those alt-right guys, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they'd be the same guys at that, you know, at that exhibition that cut her skin. You know? Because you have to, she makes people look at themselves in a way that makes people uncomfortable. And I think
it's amazing. Even just walking by her at the MoMA, it made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like just the thought of sitting down and being, but you're on display. You're the exhibit all of a sudden, which is just.
But it's also kind of what you make of it, right? So I think that like some people go like, I don't know, like the woman that took her clothes off. I can't tell you what her motivation was, but to me it kind of rings false. Like, oh look, I'm gonna do something now too, and it's like, okay, you make it about you. And I think that Marina would say, great, that's what happened. So that's
right.
That
fine. Was your.
There's no, you don't have to judge her for it. It's just what happened. Also, people that like laugh or they cry, it's like they're just having like that's what human connection is. Have you ever been in an acting class where you have to stare at people in the eye, which is like a thing that you have to do in acting all the time? I remember being so uncomfortable the first time I had to do that when I was like in high school. But then once you let the discomfort leave you, it is one of the most like powerful things to do. And we do not, that was the other thing, is she kind of also illuminates stuff that we do not look at in our day-to-day life. And that we've lost connection with other people. And she's trying to bring people back to that connection. We've lost connection from the earth. She's trying to bring you back to that connection from the earth. And that's threatening because when you look at like, oh, like, hey, pay more attention to the earth, we realize like, oh, we're actively killing it. And that's hard for us to look at.
Right.
When you are saying racist slurs at people and then she says, look into their eye for a moment, you realize, oh, I've been dehumanizing someone. And that's hard for you to look at. So her work, I think, is like way more important than we even fully realize when we think of like.
And where does she live now? She is alive.
I mean, I don't know. I think
just bouncing around the world.
Like, yeah, I'm sure she has got some like, you know, main spot. Oh, here's another thing that's interesting. She's trying to build a performance art like space specifically devoted to performance art to kind of keep it alive as a concept. And one of the things that she's done after that one in the MoMA where she was in it, she had a revived or whatever an old piece that she had in like the 70s where, and I remember talking to you about this because we were like, oh, I don't know about this. But the idea is that there's a naked woman and a naked man standing in the doorway of the exhibit. And to come into the exhibit, you have to like, they're very close together. So you have to like squeeze yourself in between these two naked individuals to get to the work. And in the past, I mean, when she did this originally, she did it with her like lover at the time. And it was, so she was that part of the exhibit. She's like, now I'm old. Nobody wants to rub up against me. She was like, so they got two young artists that they then were the naked people. And she's like, part of the point of this is to show that like you can keep performance art pieces alive by revisiting them, and it doesn't have to be the original artist that does them. It can because that's where it's almost like theater, right, where you can like have a revival of this thing. But that piece in particular, I remember talking to you about, I don't know if you remember talking about this, but I remember having so many issues mentally about like how it feels like it's so violating to the you know, how easy it is to then be violated in that position, how like vulnerable you are. And I had like mixed feelings about that, especially as the, you know, for the woman in that situation. And what I realized like today when I was thinking more about it is that is part of her whole thing though, which is that we as a society have laws. We as a society have ideas of what's good and what's bad, what's okay and what's not okay. She's more interested in, as a human being, what are you doing or not doing, not because it's a law, but because it's the right or wrong thing to do. Ooh. And what is the right or wrong thing to do? And how do you interact with your fellow human? You know? So like in that exhibit, in theory, if some guy like gropes the artist, someone could press charges, right? She's not interested in that. She's interested in the fact that, and that man chose to grope the artist or whatever. Which I think is like another level of like, we always think in terms of like, well, that's illegal or that's like, that's harassment or whatever. But it's like, this is more important about, I don't know. Does that make any sense what I'm saying? It's like, it's a little bit deeper than just like right or wrong, or it's right or wrong because we say it is. It's more like, what is your human reaction to this situation?
Well, it's a little bit what we were talking about on our Clubhouse thing that I brought up is like the bloodthirst of humans and how like we're obsessed with like true crime and, you know, understanding these like mass murderers rather than like focusing on the understanding of them, the killers, rather than like the victims and stuff. And like what is inherent in humans. And she pushes those boundaries of like that it's not black and white. It's what is in us, in our blood, like it's what's deep. It's pretty scary stuff. I think because there's also no laws with her art. It's not like whatever you do, there's no consequences. There's no like police there to, I mean, maybe if you like go in there and kill, you know, whatever, but
theoretically, even with that gun on the table,
right,
the idea is,
I guess
let's see what people want to do in this. You know, it would be interesting to see if someone had killed her, then what happens, because it's part of the art. But like,
oh, good. There's the
it's
cue the lawnmower outside.
It's fine.
Cue the lawnmower.
It's fine.
Didn't even know I had lawnmower people.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have a gardener now.
Oh, great! Look at you. Moving on.
Look at me.
Yeah. I just want to add one last thing about her that was interesting too. That I think is very applicable to the Art of Difficult Women podcast. And this is also maybe what you were partly alluding to with the alt-right hating her. So it came out recently that she had said, I've had abortions for my art. And it was interpreted to mean that as an art installation or something, she had abortions. And then she clarified it and was like, no, assholes. She was like, I had abortions because I got pregnant. And to be able to continue to be an artist, I had to have an abortion. And that was my choice. And I'm allowed to have that choice. Just like if you were a doctor or something and you're like, I love my career and I don't have time for a baby, I'm going to have an abortion. So it's just, I love how they twisted it into being like, see, she's like using abortion in her art. And she's like, no, I just had an abortion like a regular person because I realized like, I'm not ready to have a child and I'm not looking to have a child. But people love to, you know, they want to turn her into this monster. Like, oh.
Well, yeah. I mean, you Google her now and there's just so much hate towards her because of, you know, how they're just trying to label her.
And she just seems like a magical, wonderful woman.
Well, because she's also just like, again, like even with the media coming at her and all these articles and like the alt-right saying that she's a Satanist and stuff, she's probably just like, just standing there.
Yeah.
Just
this woman has been through so much pain, and she's even put herself through a lot of pain where she, like you said earlier about the meditation, she like has overcome it. You know, so when people are super like reactionary to things, right, it's because they're full of pain and you're pushing their pain button. You can't push her pain button anymore. She pushed hers already to the point, to the brink. She's at peace with herself. She's at peace.
Right.
She's amazing. Y'all
I
should
wonder
watch
what meditation app she does.
Well, actually, did you see that Lady Gaga went to study her meditation styles?
I did see that.
And she said Lady Gaga was a great student because she didn't cheat. So whenever she said you need to go to this level, Lady Gaga went all the way.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know what those things were, but
I also read that she had a partner, and when they broke up, they both went to the opposite sides of the Great Wall of China and spent months walking the wall, and then met in the middle and said goodbye. That's their breakup. That was how they did that. Could you imagine?
Love that. What's cool about that too is it gives you time to think about the relationship.
Yeah, a couple months.
And then you're like, bye.
What if you were like, no, but what if you were like, but they were like, bye. And then you were like, wait, I've been thinking of months. And,
that's it.
Just what a, I don't know. Can't even get a guy to meet me in the park. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let alone.
But then, but you really wanted to walk like months to then break up with you? If you're going to break up with me, you have to walk the whole wall of China.
That would be.
Maybe that was part
high
of the
standards.
idea.
My standards are high. I have high standards.
I like people that can walk, or I don't want people to walk. Anyway, I don't know.
Well, badass. All these women are super badass. It's just really
totally.
And
I relate.
Yeah,
Not
and I
to
feel
say
like
that I'm so badass, but I'm
are
inspired.
badass, Katie. Yeah.
I'm
no,
inspired.
it's just yeah. I just think it's so these lawnmowers. What's so neat about them is that they're just unapologetically themselves.
Yes.
Like not letting society dictate who they are, what art. It's like it's all coming. I mean, with Frida, she's like lying in her bed, dying, painting art that has to be shared with who, that's what I love about artists, visual painters and performance, but just like.
Well, I think that like, that's one thing there's this level of like, don't give a fuckedness about these ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that I feel like when I think about, what we do with the band is kind of like performance art. We've certainly been accused of performance art.
You're so brave. That's so brave what you do. Thank you.
But it's true in the sense that like, there is a level of like, I don't give a fuck what you think about this. Yeah. This is what I have to say.
Yeah. It's actually just for, really, we write this for us.
Absolutely for us. And to like,
and we're just so lucky that
have a voice. Yeah.
Masses also enjoy it as well. But
so I'm into it. I hope you guys were inspired by these ladies too. I think.
And if you're if there's an inner artist in you trying to get out, like fuck it and just do it.
Yeah.
Make your art and don't worry about what other people think. These bitches certainly didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And aspire to be fully human. I think that like in this world where we're so dominated by like, do they like me? And like, oh, money and like all these things. And like, let that go a little bit. If you can learn anything from Marina Abramovic, it's let some of that go and just be present.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you have a chamber pot.
Totally. Oh my God, I'm going to carry one around now.
I know. I want one.
It's my new personality.
I'm peeing right now.
Yeah. I don't even have a chamber pot. I just ruined my chair. It's fine.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't, like us, rate us, review us, tell a friend, all the stuff.
Yeah.
We're on Patreon. Do that. Anything else you want to add?
We love you. Be nice to each other. When given the opportunity, don't cut someone. Give them a rose instead.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's romantic.
All right. Happy Women's History Month.
Bye.